Help me reach my goal and subscribe. And hit the bell icon.
Chapter 68:31. Claire's heart is already filled with turbulent waves. If Charlie is really the young master of the Wade family in Eastcliff, then many doubts could indeed be well explained. Why did Doris of Emgrand Group treat him so specially? Why did Doris look up to him? Originally, he couldn't figure out this question. But when Charlie's identity was changed to the young master of the Wade family, everything was explained. Because once Charlie's identity is changed, Doris becomes Charlie's employee. And as Charlie's wife, she would naturally take special care of him. And the villa in Thompson Epping, where he and his family were living now. Why did Solomon Wang give such an expensive villa to her husband? Later, so many people came to Charlie to look at Feng Shui. And the price they gave was only a few million. But Solomon's villa was worth hundreds of millions. Oh, yes. There is also Shangri-La. Isn't Shangri-La a super luxurious 5-star hotel chain of the Wade family in Eastcliff? Recalling that when Charlie reorganized their wedding ceremony, he borrowed the Sky Garden of Shangri-La, which was never rented out to the public. At that time, she wondered how Charlie could have such a big face. But once he is substituted as the young master of the Wade family, everything becomes reasonable. After all, it was the Wade family's hotel. Who could say no to Charlie's use of it? And that Orville, who was obviously such a fierce and evil person, and a godfather-level figure in the entire Orris Hill. Why was he so respectful to Charlie? The more she thought about it, the more desperate she became. Because she knew that Master Jing Qing's speculation was most likely correct. At this time, Master Jing Qing suddenly said, "By the way, Donna, I just have a guest here. He came to visit early in the morning. Earlier than you two, and he has some connections with the Wade family in Eastcliff. If you have any doubts, you might as well ask him in person." Claire was even more surprised and asked quickly, "Master, the guest you mentioned has a connection with the Wade family. Then who is he?" Jing Qing smiled slightly but did not answer her question, but said to the back hall behind, "Donna Tang, please come out and see him." There was a sound of footsteps in the back hall immediately. Claire was very nervous, staring at the small door between the back hall and the front hall, feeling very uneasy. Master Jing Qing said that this person had a connection with the Wade family. Whether Charlie is the young master of the Wade family, this person must be able to give her a clear answer. But she suddenly felt a little scared in her heart. Afraid of knowing some facts that she couldn't accept or didn't want to accept. At this time, Leon stepped out from the back. The moment she saw Leon, Claire felt that this person looked familiar. But she couldn't remember where she had seen him for a while. Leon came up to her and said respectfully, "Hello, Madam Wade. My surname is Tang, and my name is Leon. I have been the butler of the Wade family for decades, responsible for managing many internal affairs and trivial matters of the Wade family." Leon Tang. Claire sighed in his heart. "I know you. I have seen your report on TV before." Leon asked in surprise, "How could Madam Wade have seen my report? I have rarely accepted media interviews in recent years." Claire said truthfully, "When my grandfather was alive, he seemed to pay close attention to the Wade family. He would read any report about the Wade family. It was because of him that I read more related information." Leon asked curiously, Did you know your husband at the stage you mentioned? Yes. Chapter 68:32. Claire nodded and said, Charlie worked at my grandfather's construction site at first. My grandfather liked him very much, so he introduced him to me. And then arranged for him to study at Ores Hill University for a period of time. At that time, he was my classmate. After graduation, my grandfather wanted me to marry him. And he was very strong. No matter who opposed it, it was useless. Leon smiled and asked her, Does Mrs. Wade know why? Claire said blankly, I don't know. Maybe my grandfather admired him very much. Or liked him very much. Grandpa didn't tell me the specific reason. He just said that if I marry Charlie, he won't hurt me. Leon nodded and said with a smile. If I remember correctly, your grandfather should be called Darian Wilson, right? His parents gave him that name because they hoped that he could get rid of poverty and live a rich life, right? Claire looked at him in astonishment and asked. How do you know? Leon smiled slightly, but did not answer her question. Instead, he asked. Then do you know what your grandfather did for a living when he was young? Claire thought for a moment and said. When my grandfather was young. He was said to be a servant in a very wealthy family in Eastcliff. Later, the family gave him a generous severance pay. He took the money and returned to Ores Hill. And gradually started his own business. Leon nodded, yes. Your grandfather did not lie. And the master family he mentioned is actually the Wade family in Eastcliff. Ah? Claire was shocked. My grandfather was a servant of the Wade family. Leon said, although the term servant does not sound good. It is not actually a slave, but a lifelong good servant. Then he smiled and said. But you are right. Your grandfather was indeed a servant of the Wade family. Claire felt her breathing quicken and asked him. Then, so, does that mean Charlie is indeed the young master of the Wade family? Did my grandfather recognize Charlie's identity? So he wanted to marry me to him? Leon nodded slightly solemnly and said seriously. Yes. Your husband Charlie Wade is indeed the young master of the Wade family. His father is Chang Jiang, the second young master of the Wade family. And his mother is Margaret and of the American family. Ah? Is that really the case? Claire felt dizzy. She had been married to Charlie for so long. But in the end, she had to learn about her husband's true identity from other people. Her tears instantly burst out and she choked up. But why didn't he tell me? No matter who he is, he should have told me the actual situation. Leon shook his head and said, he can't tell you. After that, he asked her. Do you know why the young master has lived in the orphanage for 10 years? Why? Claire was puzzled. Since he is the young master of the Wade family naturally has the ability to let him live the best life. Why did they leave him alone in the orphanage for so long? Leon said seriously, because the young master not only has a deep enmity, but also is in danger of getting himself killed. At this point, Leon said excitedly. The young master's parents were the pride of the people and the best of the best. Back then, they offended a very ancient and evil organization. That organization has a history of more than 300 years. Now its agents are all over the world. The young master's parents died in their hands. And they have always wanted to cut the grass and wipe out the roots. And they would want the young master dead as well. thanks to the young master's father who had taken precautions. He knew that he would die at the hands of the enemy sooner or later. So he arranged a proper escape route for the young master. It was he who arranged for the young master to live in an orphanage for 10 years. During these 10 years, the evil organization had been looking for the young master's whereabouts. But they never imagined that the young master had actually been living in Aurus Hill, the city where his parents were killed. The young master's father once said that the most dangerous place is often the safest place. The option that everyone thinks is impossible is often the best option. Chapter 68:33. Claire felt that her entire worldview had been overturned. She had never expected that Charlie was not only the young master of the Wade family from the capital, but that there was such a tragedy and conspiracy behind his life. The Wade family was already one of the top families in the country. And Charlie's parents were also the most famous people in the Chinese circle at home and abroad. But even people like them could not face the enemies behind them. And even arranged for Charlie to live in an orphanage incognito after their death to ensure Charlie's safety. What kind of giant would the enemy behind them be? At this moment, Claire no longer cared to think about the ways Charlie had deceived her over the years. She asked nervously, "Is that organization still hunting down Charlie?" "That's right." Leon nodded heavily and said seriously, "If they knew that the young master is still alive in this world, they would do their best to hunt him down." Claire subconsciously clenched her fists and said angrily, "Charlie was obviously just a child at the time. What deep hatred could they have with a child? He has suffered so much since he was a child. Why are the other party unwilling to let him go?" Leon shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Mrs. Wade, many people in this world are unreasonable. For so many years, the other party has wanted the young master and his parents to disappear from this world. Cutting the grass and eradicating the roots is what they have been insisting on. There is another reason that Leon cannot tell anyone. Victoria has always suspected that the woman who died with Changing was not Margaret. She has not given up looking for Charlie, monitoring the Yin family, and even trying to wipe out the Yin family in New York. In fact, it was all to lure Margaret to show up. If Victoria knew that Charlie was still alive, she would definitely try her best to assassinate him. Because she knew that as long as Margaret was still alive, then the moment she found Charlie and was about to kill him, Margaret would definitely appear. Claire looked at Leon at this time and asked him, "What is the purpose of Butler Tang finding me? Is it to tell me these hidden secrets? Did Charlie ask you to come?" "No." Leon said solemnly, "I dared to come to Mrs. Wade today. The young master himself does not know about it. I came to Mrs. Wade to ask for a favor. This matter may be difficult, but I still implore Mrs. Wade not to refuse." Claire hurriedly said, "You don't have to be so polite. If I can do something for Charlie in this matter, I am willing to bear it no matter what the price." Leon adjusted his breathing, then looked into her eyes and said very seriously, "Mrs. Wade, I hope you can disappear from the young master's world for a while." "Disappear?" Claire asked in horror. "Why do you want me to disappear? Even if I can't help him get revenge, I can still support him by his side." Leon shook his head slowly and said very seriously, "Mrs. Wade, you don't know how terrible the young master's enemies are. As long as you are still by the young master's side, He will never be able to truly let go and face his enemies. Once his enemies find him, you and your family will become a burden to him. Claire frowned and asked in confusion. No matter how powerful these people are, can they be above the law? Can't Charlie call the police? Can't he seek legal protection? Chapter 68:34. Leon smiled and asked her, Mrs. Wade, if I tell you that the young master's enemy has tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of assassins, who is ready to fight for her at any time, do you think the law can protect him? If I tell you that these death warriors are spread all over the world, hidden and impeccable, and can launch a suicide charge against the young master and his family at any time, do you think the law can still protect him? If I tell you that his enemy is an old monster who has lived for more than 400 years, has great magical powers and is ruthless, do you still think the law can protect him? Claire was horrified and blurted out, how is this possible? This is the real world, not a myth or legend. How is it possible that someone really lives for 400 years and has great magical powers? After that, she noticed something and her expression suddenly turned cold. She said seriously, If Butler Tang thinks that I am not worthy of Charlie, or if Charlie thinks that I am not worthy of him, you can tell me directly. As long as you tell the truth, I can leave the house anytime and anywhere without any drag. But you use such an excuse to fool me. Don't you think it's ridiculous? Leon smiled bitterly. You are Mrs. Wade, the legal wife of our young master. Our young master has been enduring in your house for so many years. And it's all for you. Otherwise, even if the Wade family doesn't give him any help with his character, he can move alone at the construction site. Even if he lives and eats on the construction site all day, he must have no complaints and enjoy it. How could he be willing to be criticized by thousands of people in the Wilson family? So how could he think that you are not worthy of him? Claire knew that what he said made sense, and her mood eased a little, and she asked again, Then what is your intention in making up these words? Leon sighed, as if she had aged a few years in an instant, and sighed. Mrs. Wade, this world is multifaceted. The world you live in is only one of them. So you don't know the true identity of the young master. But even if you know the true identity of the young master, this is just two sides of the world. This world has a third face. Under the third face, some people can live for hundreds of years without aging, and have abilities far beyond ordinary people. Just like the Eastern myths or Western myths maybe you have read on weekdays. Many things in them are not just fantasies of the ancients. Claire was dumbfounded, and for a moment she didn't know whether to believe him or not. From her own rational point of view, Leon's words were not credible at all. But from her emotional point of view, when Leon said these words, there was no trace of lying at all, and he was extremely sincere. Seeing that she was still confused, Leon said to Jing Qing beside her, Master Jing Qing, you happen to be the third face of this world. Please let Mrs. Wade take a peek. Jing Qing nodded, put his hands together, and said to Claire, Amitabha, since the donor does not believe it, then I dare to let the donor see what is the practice of Taoism. After that, he looked at the bouquets of flowers presented by pilgrims in the temple a few days ago. Those bouquets were greenhouse flowers cultivated in greenhouses. In the cold winter, they could not be preserved for a long time. They faded and withered in just 1 or 2 days, becoming lifeless. He walked forward, picked up the bouquet of flowers gently. Then came to Claire, handed the flowers to her and asked, "Excuse me, Donna, are these flowers still alive?" Claire shook her head in confusion. "They are already dried up like this. How can they still be alive?" After that, she sighed with regret. If these freshly cut flowers are placed in a warm place and inserted into water, they may live a few more days. If they are placed directly in the Buddhist hall, it will be very cold and there will definitely be no life. Jing Qing nodded. "Amitabha, there is compassion in your eyes. And you are like this to flowers and plants. This is great love." Chapter 68:35. After that, he gathered a bit of spiritual energy in his body at his fingertips. Gently touched the bouquet in Claire's hand, and said seriously, "Donna, please look, the life is back." Before Claire could react to Jing Qing's words, "life is back," she saw the dried flowers in front of her suddenly come alive. The dried flowers, which were originally grey-brown, suddenly regained their colorful appearance at this moment. The dried branches and petals became full, fresh, and full of vitality again. Claire was completely dumbfounded, because she had never seen such a scene in her life. In her impression, the withering of life is completely irreversible. Why can it be restored to vitality under the influence of Master Jing Qing's words? This has obviously overturned the education she has received for so many years and her understanding of the world. Then the bouquet in her arms began to emit a faint floral scent. This scent was extremely fresh and natural. What a magic! Or is it magic? She was extremely shocked, staring at Jing Qing with wide eyes. "How did you do this? How can a mage have such incredible magical powers?" Jing Qing said calmly, "Amitabha, my ability is probably just a drop in the ocean in front of young Master Wade." Claire was even more shocked. She blurted out, "Are you saying that Charlie also has this ability?" "Of course." Master Jing Qing nodded and said, "I said before that your husband has a rare Shenglong fate in the world. If my ability is a tall building on a flat ground, then his ability is straight into the sky." My God! Claire's mind was extremely confused, and she blurted out, "How is this possible? I have lived with him for so long. Why don't I feel anything at all?" Leon on the side said, "Mrs. Wade, in fact, in the past few years, your life has also been surrounded by various miracles. But sometimes your brain automatically rationalizes these miracles. If you think about it carefully, you should be able to think of one or two. All kinds of miracles." Claire pondered for a moment and suddenly said, "Charlie's skills are miracles. By the way, there was also the time when my father was in a car accident. The doctor said that his spine was broken, and he was already paralyzed from the waist down. In the end, Charlie found Shi Tianchi, the divine doctor, to cure him." Leon asked back, "Mrs. Wade, you are also a person who has received higher education. Now calm down and think carefully. Is there any Chinese medicine practitioner in this world who can really cure irreversible paraplegia from the waist down? Not to mention Chinese medicine, Western medicine, and even doctors from major tribes around the world cannot have this ability." Claire asked back in surprise. "So what you mean is that my father's high paraplegia was cured by Charlie?" "Of course," Leon said. "The young master has his magical powers and can refine a magic medicine that no doctor in this world can refine. Many wealthy people even offer a price of tens of billions of dollars just to buy one. The young master used it to cure your father. Claire finally understood. That's it. She encountered difficulties so many times. And Charlie always showed up at the first instance. She was excluded from the Wilson family. But suddenly she felt that the big shots in the city were helping her. There was also Stella Fay, who was the daughter and head of the American Fay family with assets of hundreds of billions of dollars. But she was particularly concerned about her. All of this was because of Charlie. When she thought about how she had been kept in the dark for so many years, and how Charlie had been hiding his identity and strength for so many years, and suffered so many grievances and so many cold stares, she felt uncomfortable and couldn't help but shed 2 lines of clear tears.